So Houston East goes from pretty much really close to downtown Houston, and it goes right into Louisiana. It includes a little bit of Louisiana. And you basically get kind of the three major cultures that are there. If you're kind of more towards the west, that's where you'll find more Spanish speakers, mostly Mexican, and then other cultures as well. And then I think as you go east and maybe a little more northern, you get more southern culture. I know, yeah, there's a lot of African Americans, and I'd never met kind of the southern African Americans. It was mostly, I lived in California and in a suburban area that didn't have a lot. So that was really cool to get into their culture. And yeah, and then as you go east, there's even a little bit of Louisiana. I guess it's kind of Cajun food, kind of that southern style. And so it's really funny, just if you look at your meal plan, you'll have gumbo one day, and then taquitos the other day, and then brisket the other day. Just all three cultures meshed together. And that was really, really interesting to see them all and how they view their religions. I know, I think that's something that kind of took me back a little bit. In California, it's not a very religious state, and I don't think me as a religious person, I didn't go out and talk about it as much. But meeting Southern people, they're so animated about it. And I've never been in a church where they'd be like, praise the Lord, and like, oh, it's, God's so good to me. And I think there'd even be times where we disagree with someone and, kind of disagree on doctrine on their porch, and then they'd be like, all right, well, God bless you, which is something you'd never hear in California, even from a religious person. That's just, religion isn't part of our dialect like that. And so that's something that I really loved, was pretty much all the people. I think I met maybe a handful of people that just straight up didn't believe in God, but all of them had that faith and had that passion. And it changed the way that I looked at it a little bit too. Like I'm a kind of a quiet worshiper, and I don't get, excited about religion, but they get excited about the littlest things. Like if you just start talking about Jesus, they get so excited and they start like moving their hands around. And that's something I thought about myself. So I'm like, you know what? The gospel is something to get excited about. And these people, all they know about the gospel is Jesus Christ and his sacrifice for us. And they are so much more excited about it than I am about all the gospel that I have to bring them. And so, I think I learned a lot from that change in culture. The temple, I think, is pretty close. I think it's just outside of our mission border, but it's definitely there. And it's a very interesting temple. I'll try to remember the story right. You might need to fact check these against a book or something. But basically, the place where the church felt really strongly that they needed to build the temple was on a land that was owned by a non-member. And he didn't want to give it up. I have specific plans for what I want to do with this plot of land, and no matter what the church asked him. And he changed his mind because of a dream he had. He dreamt that God was telling him, like, you should let that church use this land to build their temple. And so they designed a temple, and I guess it was kind of a standard temple, the kind that looks pretty similar to other ones they've built. And he refused to let them build it that way. He said, no, this is still my land, and I want this to be like a beautiful temple, and I don't want it to, look regular, I guess. And so it has a very unique design. And it's a temple that was definitely designed to look very beautiful. It's kind of, it's not the Salt Lake Temple, but in the same way, you can tell a lot of work was put into it on the outside to show how beautiful it is. And so I guess that was kind of a blessing, I think, for me. I know I live by the Sacramento Temple, which is kind of a granite building. And it's definitely a beautiful temple, and it's a little more simple compared to this one, which is the Houston Temple is just very well decorated, and just has a really cool feeling just on the outside of it. Like, it definitely feels like a house of the Lord. talk was I spent a lot of my mission working with really, really poor people. And I think I've always been in suburban areas, and I'd never, I guess, hadn't really, I guess, trying to think of the way to put it. Yeah, I guess working with the poor, you just kind of see the faith that they have. And I think, I served Spanish speaking, and it was such a different experience from, I think, some of the people that we met. I was in an area that was about half Spanish and half non-Spanish. And Spanish people would always, be happy to see us, happy to share. And then sometimes we'd go into, I think, the nicer neighborhoods, and people were a lot less accepting of us. They were just kind of like, oh, great, this person's here to take up my time. And so that was something that I think really touched me, was, they had that humility that you often see in poor people, but just how welcome they were. And I think it's easy to be scared of maybe like homeless people and stuff like that, thinking like maybe they'll think that I'm judging them or something. And that's kind of a fear that I had talking with homeless people at first, and people that, maybe people that couldn't speak any English at all, and be like, what are they gonna think of this white boy trying to come up to him and be like, hi, I'll speak your language. But how accepting they were, and how they're willing to hear from you, even though they could tell my culture was so different, was something that I appreciated a lot.